For centuries, Yorkshire was coal country. Generations of miners ensured this region powered the nation.
This country, it is what it is today because of coal and the people who worked in the coal mines.
As British coal enters its swan song, what's left in Yorkshire is a museum to a bygone era. Former miner Peter Wordsworth now shows tourists deep underground.
We had loads of coal mines, we had loads of power stations. Over the last 3 or 4 years, there's been a drastic decline.
For the first time since the 1880s, the UK has gone weeks on end this year without relying on coal to generate electricity. Britain is the first major economy promising to reach zero net carbon emissions by 2050.
Will no longer make any contribution whatsoever to the destruction of our precious planet.
At its peak, this massive coal-fired power station in West Yorkshire produced enough energy for 2 million people. But as coal increasingly becomes irrelevant in Britain, sites like this one are about to be demolished.
In 20 years, Britain has reduced its emissions by nearly 40%. In the next 30 years, it's aiming to totally decarbonise its power supply using a range of technologies. Nuclear power and natural gas have now taken over from coal as the primary sources of electricity generation. But the UK is heavily reliant on energy imports from Europe, and if Brexit happens, that could mean a price hike for consumers.
You have to be really careful about how you enact profound changes across your energy system, because this has to do with people's jobs and their livelihoods, and in some instances it's cultural.
As the coal industry comes crashing down, what was built up during the Industrial Revolution is being replaced by a renewables revolution. Britain is now home to the world's largest offshore wind farm, and on dry land there are 2,000 more.
There are times in the UK where it powers up to 30 or even 40% of the UK's electricity generating capacity.
On this site in Cambridgeshire, north of London, just a few turbines power 8,000 homes.
It's good to see that we're showing that level of ambition in the targets. Clearly that needs to be backed by policy.
If the UK doesn't meet its targets, scientists say the natural environment in Britain will continue to be seriously threatened. In the English moors, the rolling hills of bright purple heather are already at risk due to global warming.
We've got 5,000 acres here. It's a lovely upland, heathland.
High up in the hills, this heather is in very poor condition after last year's drought in Britain.
Hopefully, we're not going to see massive vegetation change. A lot of organisations are worried that if climatic change continues, if they carry on damaging the environment, that we're going to see large-scale landscape changes over the next few decades.
On the streets of London this month, tens of thousands of protesters have shut down the city, urging the government to adopt a stricter net zero target by 2025. The Prime Minister suggested the crowds were uncooperative crusties, but as the Conservative government pushes for an early election, environmental experts believe voters will be looking for stronger action on climate change.
If they want to keep attracting a voter base that's a little bit younger, and that's what the younger voter base is primarily interested in, then they need to respond.
The Parliament has set the goal, but it's the British people who forced politicians to take a global lead in tackling climate change.